welcome to this Learn Live. My name is Scott Durow, and I have ginger hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a dark blue top, and I am joined by my very good friend, Christian Abata, and fellow MVP. Christian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Scott, and welcome for all of you. So yeah, as Scott said, my name is Christian, and I would love to share with you some cool things today about Command Bar and just receiving your questions if you have, and yeah, trying to understand or learn a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the purpose of this, I think, is to kind of have like a friendly run through of the Learn Live content on the bar. And the command bar is actually something that's very close to my heart. It's something I've been involved with for like a very long time going back. And you'll kind of, for those of you who don't know about my involvement, I'll kind of show you later on. But if you want to you could just follow along with us, because you can go to scan this QR code or go to that aka.ms link. And the Learn module on this is fantastic. And in fact, in general, the Learn modules are really very well written, very nicely laid out. There's lots of step-by-step guidance, there's videos, and there's even like test yourself, like question and answer kind of stuff. And so you will need to make sure that you pay attention, because there will be a test at the end if you want to test your knowledge.
Yeah,
Hopefully I know the right answer.
and also just don't forget to see the examples that you will find there. So for this specific module as well, you will see that there are some solutions that you can download and then you can test from there. So yeah, please take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is this army of moderators, very knowledgeable, waiting to answer your questions. So please do say hi and ask some questions, and they will do their best to answer any questions you have. I mean, the command bar is one of those things that it's kind of gone on a journey, I think, and perhaps even that journey isn't. It isn't fully, we're not at the end, everything's about a journey, right? But the objectives of this Learn module is to kind of explore the basics of what a command bar is, and specifically how you can now use PowerFX with, it's called modern commanding, and how you can create buttons inside your model driven app. So I have been working with model driven apps for a very long time, because it kind of goes back. I've had the privilege to kind of grow up with the platform right from back when it was like CRM and the early days, and then it's kind of evolved over the years into what we have now, a Dataverse and model driven apps. But of course, we've had Canvas apps come onto the scene. And Christian, you've had a lot of experience with command bar, well, with Canvas apps, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a lot of experience, but yeah, I have played with Canvas apps, and maybe we can divide this like by teams. So there's the Canvas app teams, and then maybe can be the other team for the model-driven apps, and all of them can be working together and seeing all of the new things that Microsoft is providing for us. So for example, in my case, I love PowerFX. It's really nice to do, and you will see how we can insert those codes into the command bar. So yeah, please take a look.
Yeah, PowerFX. I mean, that's the language that seems to now really glue the whole of the Power Platform together. It's used to be something that was only in Canvas apps. It used to be the language, the expression language, like the Excel expression language that you would use to put behind your buttons and in your bindings of your labels, in your galleries and things like that. But what we've started to see, haven't we, like increasingly now, PowerFX really is becoming ubiquitous across so many different parts of the Power Platform. And of course, model-driven apps is no exception. So previously, PowerFX just didn't get a look in model-driven apps, but now we're starting to see it pop up in lots of different places, like formula columns, And obviously, not least, now we can actually embed Canvas apps inside model-driven apps from a custom page to kind of give you that real flexibility. But what was brilliant about the modern command bar and modern commanding is that now we can get that power of power effects, if you like, inside the command bar. But when you first saw the command bar in model-driven apps and indeed model-driven apps in its entirety, what was your reaction, having kind of come from that Canvas world where you had to do everything? You know, you create lots of buttons and you had to put all the bindings and all of the data sources and all of those things, and suddenly you're in a model-driven world. What was your kind of feeling and reaction to that?
So actually, one of the best things that I find what with playing all of this is the easiest way, and you can just go and connect with all the entities inside. And then as you are saying, I'm kind of excited to do things more quickly.
Yeah,
So this
yeah,
kind of thing,
totally.
like doing fast, is really nice to see in the canvas and using all of this power now about power effects and all of these things. So yeah, things doing in a fast way is the best thought that I was thinking in that moment, like saying, hey, this is great because I can create more things real faster.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, Christian, because it is the speed, isn't it? The fact that you can just have those tables and you can just immediately create all those views and forms, and you can customize and you get all this kind of functionality, quote unquote, for free, right? So you don't have to go and code it. And so what Power
Yeah,
FX is doing is it's kind of augmenting, giving us flexibility alongside that consistency and that speed of creating your apps very quickly from all of your metadata about your data. And this model-driven command bar is the thing that sits across the top of forms and views, and it's metadata driven as well. Just in the same way as all your views and your forms have columns that are then bound to fields and forms, and you change the field in one place and it changes it everywhere. It's the same
yeah,
thing for the command bar. You can add buttons there and it just kind of automatically pop up and show and hide based on the context that you're in. And we've been going on again with a bit of a journey with this. So this is a little evolution of like how things worked, how things used to work back in the day. I mean, this is when I first started with CRM 3.0. I mean, I worked with CRM 1.0, and then it kind of looked very similar to this, and then we evolved into a much more Office SharePointy kind of the day in CRM4. There's a little jewel there on the left-hand side, which is kind of very retro now. And then we kind of got into this much more sort of modern ribbon that had tabs and contextual buttons. And then we moved into much more of a kind of a minimalist modern feel to this command bar. And of course, that then progressed through to a much more cleaner SVG, scalar vector graphics way of showing the command bar. Of course, it shows at different resolutions. And that leaves us to where we are today with the Power Platform, right? So it's kind of,
yeah.
you can see how it's moved over the years. Now, I just thought I might just point out what is a ribbon and what isn't the ribbon. Sorry, I'm talking about ribbon, and that's just a hangover. I keep doing this, right? It's called a command bar, but because it came from what was called the ribbon, I quite often refer to it as ribbon. So every time I refer to it as ribbon, Christian, could you just correct me? Because then, it really shouldn't. We shouldn't talk about the ribbon. But on this is a model-driven form, right? So at the top here, you've got your command bar. So that allows you to do things like, create a new record and save the record, all the things you'd expect. What we've also got is the ability to have a command bar on related records. So here we've got team members. This is like the team members that are related to this record, and you can actually perform contextual actions. So the little kebab menu there, which you can run. So that allows us to add buttons there. Now there is this thing called the business process flow, which is part of a Power Automate, and that is sometimes mistaken for a command bar. But so with
Yeah,
modern
it is not.
commanding, yeah. And so we've got the navigation down the left-hand side as well. And that's not a command bar. I nearly said ribbon there. That's not a command bar. We customize that using the model-driven form designer. And then across the top left, we've got our kind of office bar there. That's not a command bar. Top right, there are some buttons here that you can customize using classic, and we'll see what that means in a minute, but you can't customize that at the moment using the modern commanding, but that kind of is a command bar to a certain extent. There is also some things that kind of simulate command bars. They look like a command bar. So you can see here, we've got an activity. This is the activity feed showing all the activities that are happening on a record. That actually, although it looks like a command bar, isn't a command bar. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a list of related records when we click on a tab on a particular record, and there's a list of there's commands that you can apply. So you can select one or more of these items here, these records, and then you can apply certain operations on them, like you can delete them, or you can export them, or run some custom, as we'll see, custom power effects. And in a similar way here, what this is called a home, the home grid, you can see we've also got a ribbon, a command bar that you can run actions on. Now, also, actually, this quite often gets forgotten about. We do actually have the ability to have command bar operations inside dashboards. So here you've got a model driven dashboard, and we can actually put command bar buttons inside a dashboard. So you could say, okay, here's a dashboard showing all of the active challenges, and you could say, right, okay, we'll approve them directly from a dashboard, which is really cool, I think. There is a dashboard command bar. We can't customize that using the modern commanding, but you can customize that from the classic commanding. So there's lots and lots of different places. Okay, so different types of command bar. Now, there are a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump directly over into our learn content, just to kind of show you where we are. So this is the learn content that QR link would have brought us to, and you can see here we've got all the different modules that you can run, and there's some really advanced stuff that you could do. We are exploring just this first one, but if we come into an example of that model driven app, you can see here we've got our dashboard, and if I select here, I can run. You can see here, this is what a command bar looks like. You've got the ability to activate it, deactivate it. Kind of really useful to have contextual things, but also you can do things like, okay, if I mark select, then I can select lots of individual records here, and then I could then run an operation on multiple records. And that's kind of very similar to if you were in a grid of things. You could select multiple items here, and you can see that then there's the command bar will show and hide things across the top. But there's lots of different types of buttons. So you've got, so you can see here, we've got something called this is called a split button, okay? Because it's got a button itself. So you can, this is the main action, but it's also got a drop down menu here. So hence the name split, right? And that's sometimes quite useful if you've got something you would do normally, a default action, but then some additional things that maybe you don't always use. And then we've also got the ability to have lists of other options that sort of have like a much more of a flyout menu, almost like a contextual menu, and those can be nested with options, nested under other options. So you've got lots of options to really create some quite advanced ways of interacting with your records. And I mean, if you were going to do this in a Canvas app, right, Christian, I mean, that's a lot of work just to kind of get that up and running.
It is, actually it is.
I mean, if anyone looks at this, they're just thinking, oh, well, I'm tempted sometimes. I think about it saying, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to rewrite a Canvas app. I'm going to rewrite a model-driven app using a Canvas app, and you start it, and then you think, oh, actually, you know what I mean? Model-driven apps do a lot for us. It's very easy. You have to remind yourself that. It's very easy to forget about it. But what we do to edit these areas, you can come into the model-driven app designer, and we've got this ability to select a particular table. So I've just got one here with accounts and contacts, and I can just go edit command bar. And if I just click on edit there, it gives us the ability to select here where we want to edit. Now, remember before we were looking at the different areas, right? Actually, if you select it, it kind of changes the little graphic, which is kind of cool. You can kind of see, oh, look, there's associated grid. It's on a tab, on a subgrid view. It's on a form, on a main form. It's across the top. So it's pretty cool. And if I edit that, it then opens up this this designer here, which then I can start to do stuff like, I can kind of go and see all of the different items I've got, select, and I can go and create a new one. And then I can create drop downs, split buttons, all of those kind of things that we were just talking about. So that enables us to do Power FX. But while it fiddles around doing whatever, oh, it did it. There we go. But so you can set the label, you can set icons and all of those kind of things. And you've got split button, drop down. And if I create a drop down, I can put groups inside that drop down there. So if we go back to the slides just quickly here, there is a classic commanding. So Christian, before we kind of got talking about this, had you ever heard of classic commanding? Was that something that you'd seen before?
Yeah, actually, when I was trying to add actions over buttons, and I just wanted to hide and then show some commands in the bar, and to do that, and what I was needed to do is write some JavaScript code and actually to run a flow using HTTP requests and things like that. So
right,
yeah, I had the chance to play with that, but to be honest, in that moment to start learning about JavaScript, it was a lot of work.
Well, that's the beauty of this Power FX. I feel liberated the fact that it says ribbon XML here, and that it does talk about that in the module. But you're right. It's JavaScript is very much part of the classic commanding, and there's real significant differences that modern commanding allows you to use the low code approach, and classic is much more this JavaScript approach. And at the moment, there is still, if we go back here, if I select one of the existing buttons like activate or deactivate, you will see this little message across the top here, which does say, okay, well, it's a legacy button, and you can't change it here. So we can't change the icon, we can't change its behavior, we can't move it around, we can't hide and show it, all of those kind of things. So, and that's where we have to then jump into classic. But you're mentioning JavaScript. Sorry, say again.
No, I was saying it's a good news for people that uses classic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, totally. It's sort of like a gradual migration path. You could use JavaScript if you're using classic. You could start to use JavaScript in modern, and then gradually move over to PowerFX if you could. And that's what's good. I mean, if I go over here and look at my run action, we've got the ability to select both a PowerFX formula or just running JavaScript. And that's very, very similar. Interestingly, in the visibility, there isn't the option to use JavaScript in the visibility. It's only using PowerFX. So that's one reason where you might need to use that classic commanding. Now, as I said at the beginning, I've got like a very close affinity with the command bar because I wrote a tool called the Ribbon Workbench for like over a decade ago, which seems like a very long time, makes me feel old. But this is what it used to look like in like 2011. It was written in Silverlight. And as you may not even have heard of Silverlight, but it kind of is being left to the dusty shelves of the internet history, not something that we use anymore. And then it kind
Actually,
of evolved.
I'm curious about how many people in this session had the chance to play with all of that. See, it's a kind of interesting, but because maybe every time build is coming, there are some things like we are seeing like new like Copilot and all of those things. But as you are showing us, there are some that maybe goes you to the beginning of your career and you're seeing how much this is changing. And yeah, I think it's something that we have to remind. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's sometimes very easy to forget that that these things have come from somewhere else. And it's interesting because like Dataverse in general, I think it's that applies exactly what you just said there, Christian. You know, it's very easy to concentrate on the new things in Dataverse, but actually Dataverse has got this rich history of it comes from CRM, the days of Dynamics 365 and Dynamics CRM. And it has all of this functionality in there, which is still there today and perhaps doesn't get talked about, but is very powerful. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
so I would be very interested to hear, yeah, how many people on this call are using have used the REM workbench or um, perhaps still use it today. You know, if they're still using it today, I'd be very pleased. And this is what it looks like today. Actually, you know, it's like a little bit more more modern looking. But you know, let's leave that and in where it was and let's look to the future. And I think low code is definitely where it's moving. And I'm a huge fan of low code and power effects. I'm a big fan of reducing the amount of code I need to write and therefore reducing the amount of code that we need to maintain and that basically less things to worry about, right? So yeah, I think that if we've got the ability to write JavaScript, well, that's great. But if we want to use Power Effects, well, it's an opportunity to make it perhaps easier for other people to pick it up that maybe don't understand JavaScript. Um, and you know, you can mix the two, right? So you
Yep.
could have some of the stuff in written in Power Effects alongside stuff that's written in JavaScript, and it's not like an all or nothing, right? So it's a kind of a journey that you can go on.
And
Um,
it's exactly about using the classic of all of the modern. So it's not like an order. You have to use the modern because this is the new things that we are trying to show you. You can still use in both as well, right?
yeah,
So yeah, please
yeah,
go ahead and choose.
exactly. And maybe at some point, all of those things that I mentioned earlier won't be a limitation anymore. So, you know, it's like, and the approach I take is I every time there's an opportunity to kind of reassess what I've done, you know, because let's face it, you're never going to have the luxury of constantly going back over everything you've ever written and updating it to use the latest and greatest. That's just, it's not really practical, right? Unless you've got all the time in the world and all the resources in the world. But my approach is that every time I need to touch a piece of functionality to maybe enhance it or maybe some add, you know, change some business logic or something like that. I take that as an opportunity to say, okay, well, is there a way of doing this simpler using the better functionality, the latest? So I would probably do the same. Is if I'm
Yep.
going to go and edit a bit of functionality, I might say, well, is there an opportunity to just ditch all this JavaScript and just use Power Effects? One of the things that I find myself doing a lot is opening a custom page is in a dialogue. And at the moment, you can only do that by JavaScript. So it's my biggest wish. And if there's anybody listening, Adrian North is listening from Microsoft to this, please can we have the ability to open up a Canvas app in a modal
You're seeing
dialogue?
some herds are coming from the reaction. So yeah, for sure they will think about that.
Yes, please. It would make so much less JavaScript needing to maintain. Um, So yeah, I mean, the great thing is because it's using Power Effects, it starts to give you all of this nice IntelliSense, the ability to do things that you can just start typing your code, and then you can see all of the data types that you have. You can see the fields, the columns that you've got available to you. So if I go back over to my my form here, and I start to write. So you know self-selected, and or this item like that. It should give me, or let me just go back. So you can see self-selected item. I was correct. I don't know why it self-selected this item there. Oh, all item. There we go. Item, because we're on the forms. So you can start to see all of the different fields, right? So you can kind of the things that you can do in Power Effects is makes it a lot easier to discover the data types. So the when you're using all of this functionality, it just makes writing the code just so much quicker to build. You can also do things like add in additional data sources, and we'll show that in the demo in a minute. So I could load in related data, like I could say, oh, okay, I'm looking at an account, but then actually go and count the number of contacts, or even update related contacts. And to do that in JavaScript, again, would be quite complicated. And so you can navigate around, you could update values on the form that you're in. So I might want to say change the status from active to approved, or something like that. And that might be especially really cool if you're doing it in a grid of events. Remember, we were looking at a dashboard, right? You might want to select loads of things from a dashboard and actually approve them. And then, yeah, you can also get information about the record you're on. So maybe some data source information, like whether or not the user has the ability to update it, or create new values, and you could use that in your visibility rules. So I reckon, what do you think, Christian?
Yeah. So if you allow me, I can show to all of the people here how you can go and play with all of this by taking the exercise from the learning module. Are you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got it here. So if we go into this innovation challenge, what we've got is actually, sorry, this one here, this solution. We've actually got we've got this help request table created. So if you go into this command bar here, if you go to this exercise here, and if you want to follow along, there is
step by step.
Yeah, there's a step by step, and it's really, really well laid out. I mean, it allows you, it takes you all through the stages to how to create a table, how to create this help request table, and then how to go and put a field on that form inside the help request, and then you can go and create a model-driven app, and you can add that into your navigation. And then you can then go and run and publish that. So, and what you end up with is a help request table, and then we end up with this model-driven app here. Now, in the exercise here, there's also this nice little download here. So if you want to skip those, and if you want to follow along with us, I think probably the best thing to do would be to skip all of those steps there and just go ahead and install them. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go and create a little button, which is going to swap. If we go into this help request, and I'm going to run this model-driven app here, and let's play and see what it looks like. What this does is
just an advice that I remember here. You need to publish the solution. Once you have installed, you need to publish the solution. Please don't forget about that.
That's a great point. That is a fantastic point. Yeah. So if you're in the solutions here, and you have gone and created your table and created your model-driven app, it's always a good idea to go and do a publish to make sure that all of that data is all of that metadata is live. And indeed, when you're editing the actual app as well, you'll get the option to save and publish. There's always like a top right, usually it's like, here you go, you can see save and publish there. But what we're going to do is, if we have if we go into learn this one of these little records here, we've created this resolved, this status reason, which you can have active and resolved, and that's part of the that was part of the exercise. And what we're going to do is create a button here, which is going to go and create a follow-on task. Okay, so it's going to create, like, to say, okay, well, I've got this help request and someone needs help, but I don't want to do it now. I'm going to go and create a task for myself in a day or so, but I only want to do it when they are active, right? Because it doesn't make sense. If we've got a status of resolved, it doesn't make any sense to create a follow-up task. And so that's what this exercise is doing. So if we go to the first step here, what it's asking us to do is to go and edit our model-driven app, and it's asking us to edit the command bar and then going and add a command, and then it's going to ask us to create this follow-up. So let's quickly go and do that. If I go in here, let's close down that and go into our solution. So let's edit our model-driven app like this, and it brings up the standard model-driven app, which shows us all the tables that we have down the left-hand side, as well as the navigation. We've only got one table in this because, this is the sample, but you might have tons and tons. And we get this option to edit the table or edit the command bar. So if I select edit command bar, because we're adding this button to the form, right? We want to go edit on the form. And this gives us the option. Now we can go and add a new command. Okay, so I'm just going to pop it onto this form. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, what it actually does is it will go and create a Power Effects library behind the scenes. So it kind of works behind the scenes, and it will tell you when it's done. So, but if we were to go into the solution, what that looks like, if you open up your solution, what you would have normally seen just the table and the model-driven app. But what you now see is you also see this command, default command library, and that's where you're going to put all your Power Effects, right? It's almost like a Canvas app, as you'll see in a minute, but it's the place where you store all of that Power Effects. And so I've got my new command here, and I'm going to say follow up like that. And I'm going to say use icon, and I'm going to say oh, actually let's put task, because that's a new task. That's a kind of a sort of similar to the activate there. So that's done. Now, on the right hand side here, we've got the ability to have run formula and show condition on formula. Okay, so these are the two things we need to do. We need to be able to run a Power Effects formula, and we also want to only show this when the status is set to active. So if we go into that, the exercise, it gives us a nice little bit of Power Effects here. So there we go. Let's just copy that and go over into our follow up, and if I open up the visibility expression and I go here, now this is interesting, a little bit of Power Effects here, because actually this is doing something unnecessary. It's doing if, and then it's saying if it's active.
Sorry, I don't know if I am the only one, but the screen is like frozen.
Oh, is it? It's frozen?
Yeah, I am seeing the learn. Now I am seeing the power-ups. Yeah, main form. Yeah. Now
you can see it. You can see it. Okay, good. It was just obviously a little bit laggy there. Teams always. But what I've just did there, you probably missed that. But what I did is I took this here and I said, well, in the learn, it's saying if status reason equals active, set to true, otherwise false. And that's just controlling the visibility, okay? But we don't actually need that because that's a kind of unnecessary expression. So we can simplify that down, actually. So there's a little tip there, because we can just say, well, only show it if the status reason is active, yeah? Um, so that's all there is to it. I mean, to do that in JavaScript would have been, you'd have to have gone and looked at like the
Yeah.
form
Thinking
and,
about
you
thinking
know,
about JavaScript, I always remember like to do that. What we have to do is actually get first the state of the entity, like active or inactive. So that's one line. Then we have to start doing the conditional. Then if we want to add something else, just you need to read another value and then compare. And those are more than 4 or 5 lines just to do exactly the same thing that you did in just one.
yeah, exactly. And you know, it was a dream come true when I first saw it. And just get rid of all this JavaScript. Now, in the Learn module, it suggests like publishing it, but you've got to publish it, you've got to wait, and you've got to test it. So I think what we'll do is we'll just skip ahead, just because no one wants to watch a little progress bar on publish. And so let's go and add in the button action, right, to actually go and do what it needs to do. And what we're going to do is go and add in a task. So if we go back to this command editor where we were, if we just go and save and publish that. Now, you remember right before I showed you the little command, the command library that it gets added into the individual solution. Well, if we go actually back to that solution, and if we look at the table now, and we go into our table and look at commands.
Happening again. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, it'll probably take a little bit while. I think it's probably taking a little bit while to catch up, right? Are you seeing the commands in the solution?
Now we are
Yeah.
seeing the components there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the help request here, the table, has got a command section. So as well as it's added in our PowerFX, our library, okay, our component library, you can see there, it's got a component library. It's also added in a command, and you can see it inside our table. Now, it's really important that if you were going to deploy this to another environment, it's very important that you make sure that you include all of your commands that you're going to do that you want to deploy inside your table in that solution. And of course, you also need to make sure you include the component library. So there's our button that it's created. So if we go back into our editor here, now it's saved and published it. There's this little button across the top here, which allows us to say open command component library. Okay, so, and if I select open component library, what this does is it actually goes and opens that little PowerFX component library that it automatically added. Now, this then starts to enter the realm of something that's looks very, very familiar. You know, you start to sort of think, hey, now I'm actually in really familiar territory, because it's basically the Canvas App Studio. And this is what's awesome about it. And so what you've got is you've got a little component here, which is your button that you've just added. And if I select visible, well, you've now got the nice editable visible expression that we just created in the Canvas in the previous editor. Now, I kind of prefer, I have to admit, I kind of prefer editing the expressions in here, because in the app editor, in the command bar editor, the window is very, very small. And if you've got like a complicated expression, it starts to get a bit awkward because you've only got that one line. But what we have the opportunity to do is in the on select here, we can put out some code. Now, remember, if you remember, what we're going to do is we're going to go and create a task as a follow-on task. So if I come over to the data sources here, what you would do, actually, I did this earlier just to check it wasn't going to not work for our demo. What you would do is you would go into tables, and then you would search for the table that you wanted to go and create, and you would just add it in. Now, and you could even create a new table directly from here, which is cool. So And this is really unlocks the power of PowerFX, if you will, inside commanding. Because again, if you were going to do this in JavaScript, actually you'd have to start to call web API, you'd have to do HTTP requests. It all starts to get kind of messy. So if we go into our learn module and come down, it asks us to add in that task, and then it asks us to resume editing inside the command bar editor. But I'm going to show you a little tip, because you don't actually need to resume editing in the command bar editor. If you remember, I was saying that you want to just, it's easier to just to write it inside your inside the actual the editor here. So if I go back into the where is it? There it is. I can just paste that in directly here, and then I get all the the slightly nicer looking formatting there.
Yeah.
It kind of just looks like a normal, like you've just been writing a Canvas app, right?
It's a patch. It's a lovely patch.
Yeah, exactly.
Many
Just a patch.
times, you don't know how many times I've used that patch, because it's really easy, and it's obviously to remember, hey, I want to create something. Yeah, patch. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And you get all of that. You get all the IntelliSense, and you can kind of format it. So I could go and add in another, any other different. You could select from any of the other different columns that you wanted to update. Maybe put in a description there and all of those kind of things. But also, what else can we do here? So we can say at the moment we're just simply saying notify created task. Okay, that's not particularly exciting. Perhaps what we wanted to do is we wanted to navigate to the new task that we've created. We could do that as well. But let's just save that. Let me just check that's all working, right? So I'm going to save that away, and I'm going to publish that. Again, it's your tip of always publishing. I always do find I kind of seem to click publish a lot more than I probably need to. It's like you can't publish enough, right?
It happens to everyone. We need to be sure that everything is published and working well.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll leave, and I'll close that, and we'll go back, and then that will return us to, if we go back to our editor, it gives us the opportunity here to resume. Okay, so there's a question actually here that's just saying, how would you call a Canvas app from PowerFX the way you did from the Ribbon Workbench previously? Well, actually, yeah. I mean, there is actually a fantastic link in learn.microsoft.com. It shows you how to open up a Canvas app, which is a custom page, really, which is like a Canvas app. Okay, so if you search for opening up a custom page from JavaScript on the command bar, that effectively does the same thing, and you can open it up in a dialog. And it works really nice. That's the thing I would like to be able to have natively in here, right? So if we go to our on select now, you can see here we've got our little on select logic, which we've added. And if I play that, it will now play now. Now, little tip here. Across the top here, it always says there's it gives you sort of information here, like it's saying a new version of the app is available. Please refresh to update. Sometimes you'll see it saying there is a new version of your app that's being worked. It's currently publishing. I think it is something like that. Don't keep refreshing. Just leave it saying that, and then it will eventually come up with this message. It's so tempting to kind of click refresh. But if you just wait and you're patient, you'll come and see it. You'll see it come up with that little message. But if you refresh, you won't see that message.
I would love to see how many people in here, by using the reactions, actually when that message appears, it's refreshing. Just
exactly. Yeah.
At a heard, a thumb, whatever, but let us know if you are that kind of guy. Yeah, I am also.
Yeah, well, I think I discovered it by accident, where I just left. I don't know, I was doing something else, and then I thought, oh wow, it now automatically tells me when the new version is available. And, I didn't even expect it to do that. I expected you have to refresh it. But yeah, if it says that it's a new version, it's being currently published, then it will just changes and says, now, Danan, we've done. So I've just run and we played that app. Now you can see here, we've got our follow-up button, which is cool. So that's all working really nicely. And also, if I change the status to resolved and save that, you'll see that it's gone, which is good, which means our visibility expression is working. Yeah. Now notice here. Yeah, it's good. All working right. I've not done anything wrong so far. So notice actually here, you do have to save it, right? Because when we've got active here, I have to click save.
Yeah, it's not in real time. Please remember that.
Yeah, exactly, because it's quite easy to forget that. Now, if I do put it into resolved and just leave it, you can see here it's saying unsaved here, and there is something called autosave that is on by default, and it will kick in after. It's embarrassing. I should know this. Is it 30 seconds or 1 minute? 30 seconds, I think it is. Someone will correct me, but it will then save it. And then once it's saved, that means then the button will then disappear. There you go. There we go, as if by magic. So it's now says saved and the button has disappeared. So it's all good. Right. So I will just click active just so we can do it. And let's just see if that function is running. So if I click function, if I click follow up, you can see it's got now created new task, which is good, which is our message. And we can close that. And if I go into related activities and come down here, there we go. Yeah, there we got the task. So, this is good. This is like thumbs up, clapping, the crowd goes wild, it kind of all those sort of stuff. But what do you reckon?
Maybe it's waiting. How can you redirect to that page? How can you navigate to that page directly?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's kind of not very helpful, is it? Just saying created new task. You actually want to you probably want to go and navigate to it, right? So I want to say, right, navigate like that, and I can just say close that, and then I won't need the navigate because it's just going to go and redirect us to, and that's what's so nice about the patch, is because the patch returns a record. It returns a copy of the record that it's just created. What else could we do here? We could what about making a check to say, okay, are you sure you want to do this? So I could wrap this. I've just copied a bit of code here, and to say, are you sure you want to, and we say confirm, are you sure you want to follow this up? And remember, we were talking about data source info here. Well, maybe the great thing about model-driven apps, right, is that they're metadata driven. And so you don't need to worry about renaming stuff everywhere that you've used it. Well, that's what's great about the data source info. It can return all sorts of goodies about a particular data source. It can return like security, but what I'm doing here is I'm actually returning the display name of the table. So it's going to give us the display name that maybe someone's renamed it. You can return display names of individual columns, etc. So there we go. We can give it like a little custom, command there, and then we want to obviously finish it off with the correct escaping like that. So we're just saying if confirm, then navigate, and let's just indate. And you see what I mean about it's a bit awkward, this little tiny little window, because you can't expand it. So yeah, top tip, use the component library to do now, but you do have to be a little bit careful, because this is just a little sort of sidebar here, because there is only a subset of functions that are supported here. Okay, so let's just go back, and while it's doing this, let's save and publish this. and let it do its thing while we look at this. So there are only a certain number of functions now, and largely that's because they don't always make sense from running from a command bar, right? You know, they don't make, like, for example, save data and revert and scan barcode. They're not necessarily things you would do from a model driven app. So it's always best to check before you start using functions in the model driven power effects expressions.
Yeah.
So let's see. What do you reckon? Should we give it a go? And because I've gone off piste here. I've started to do something that's different from the from the actual learn module, which is a bit dangerous.
I'm sure everyone here will be glad to see that example.
Yes. Okay, so it's because we've taken a little bit of time. It's saying there's a new version, so I'm just going to refresh this, and then we're going to go and open up this, and so it's active. So I can click follow up. So I say, oh look, there we go. This is pretty amazing. Oh, thank goodness it works. You're sure you want to follow up the task, and then it says okay, and yes, it's created the new record, which is awesome. Voila. So yeah, voila.
Magic is happening.
The magic, yes, the magic is what it is. It is magic when you're used to writing JavaScript. It certainly is magic. So I think it's about time that we do a knowledge check. What do you reckon?
Oh, that's a great part, because if you were like listening with a lot of attention to Scott, in some point of this conversation, Scott gave you this answer as well. I listened to him and I said, hey, this is something that they will need for the question. So guys, please, you have the tool there, and please let us know what is the correct answer about this.
Yeah, and we can actually, well, theoretically, we can see what people are answering. Oh, the votes are coming in. The votes are coming in. Because yeah, it's there are lots of different places, right? It's the thing is it's lots of different places to choose from. So we're getting a lot of votes here. Yeah. I think there's definitely a consensus.
Yeah, see the responses? They pay attention here. Yeah.
I think what I find interesting on this question is the use of the word row, right? So it's like when a user views a single Microsoft Dataverse table row in a Power Apps model-driven app, there's a lot of stuff in there, right, to unpack. Like viewing a row in a model-driven app in a Dataverse table. It's back in the day, it used to be like viewing it'd be a form, a record, in an entity. Well, I think there is an overwhelming. What do you reckon?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see what is the correct answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
Let's show.
There is definitely an overwhelming number of people that picked main form, which is well done. Congratulations, everyone. So next question then. So which of the following options is a supported way to use Power Effects with a command? Okay, so yeah, it's a supported way, which it kind of implies that the others that are not supported, but you can do them. So yeah, it's
we saw this recently.
Yes, absolutely.
So
we were using it, which is quite good, really, that we've actually shown all the answers to these questions. It would be a bit embarrassing if we hadn't. So there is a question while we're waiting for these votes coming in that so please confirm for buttons locked since they are legacy, the only resource is the RIM workbench. E.g. all buttons on activities in the navigation bar. Correct. Yes. Anything that is locked, as in showing its legacy, the only way that you can edit that at this time is using the Rim Workbench. Or if you wanted to, if you're feeling brave, you could just export and hand craft your ribbon XML, which is, I don't recommend doing it. Hence why I wrote the Rim Workbench in the first place. But yeah, I would hope in the future, like I said before, it's a journey. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in the modern commanding. But there is, again, Christian, do you want to spill the number of people that voted correctly in this one?
Yeah, sure. Let's show the answers.
Yeah. So it was yeah.
Nice.
It was nearly 90% of people. Nearly 90% of you got this right. So well done on that. Very, very well done. So this is the last question, everyone. The last question.
Okay,
so do you want to read it?
Comment bar, on select PowerFX formula. If you want to reference data for the single table, yes, this is the tip here, single table row. It's again like the first question, you know, like trying to confuse you about saying row, and I don't know if it's in the main form, if it's a record. So yeah, I think you have to take care about the first. And if it's a table, please try to select the correct one about tables and rows. That's the key, I think. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. There's definitely there's a couple of these items that are sort of kind of trying to steer you away from the correct answer on this. But it's I have to say, actually, I sometimes forget the self. I'm always like, self is always a kind of a funny one, but it's notice that self is in all three of these options. So it's a kind of definitely a one to remember. Self-selected is definitely a common theme there. But yeah, we're getting in. There is almost an overwhelming number of people that have voted correctly on this one. So I think we shall go for the grand reveal. Yes. So yeah, like 95% of people.
Claps to everyone. Right. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, absolutely. So you were listening after all, or you've just all experts already in you.
Yes.
So yeah, Christian, do you want to kind of wrap up the summary?
Yeah, sure. So create or edit modern commands. So we saw that at the beginning. Work with classic commands. That would means please remember that you can choose with classic or new ones, and you can mix if you want. So it's not like a rule that you have to always use the new things. Just please understand what is your situation in front of your client, or maybe in front of what do you want to build, and try and choose. Yeah, use PowerFX. It's really cool because, as you saw, with a single line of code, just typing some formulas, you will get a lot of great, how can I say this, great exercising in terms of you don't have to think about too much in terms of building with code. Just please remember that one formula, it's allowing you to do like navigate or save in the records and things like that. And yeah. Actually, to customize comments, you can choose some other options in terms of if you want to hide and show, like by picking an status and things like that. So please remember that you can actually customize comments as you want. So you are the ones that do the magic behind of your computers.
I like it. I like the phrase. And I highly encourage you to go to the Learn module, because there's two other modules in this section which do show you some really cool advanced stuff, especially like running commands on multiple records in grids, and that's super, super powerful. So you can select lots of different things. So yeah, fantastic comments. Go ahead and check it out. And from myself, thank you ever so much for attending. It's been a great pleasure, and especially working presenting with yourself, Christian.
I do as well, Scott. Thank you so much for being part of all of this. And yeah, as all of everyone here, I learned a lot of things, new things with you. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks everyone for being patient and listening as you are doing now. And just don't forget to continue enjoying Microsoft Build, because there are a lot of great things that you will learn, and then we can learn together. So don't forget to
Yep.
continue running the event.
Have a great rest of your build, everyone, as well. Yeah, totally echo those thoughts. Thank you.